bigger than anything I could have ever imagined. It's super angry. It's got this aggressive nature to it that is untamed, and it's unforgiving. If you were in its path, it was going to take you.
It was upon us in no time. You know, it hit us from the front, hit us from the sides. It was like it just went through us. The wind was howling. It was like the fires, the embers were horizontal. They were just hitting us in the face. After I washed all the charcoal away, all the black soot and smoke away, I had burns over my face.
You know what? When the fires were still coming at us, I really still didn't believe. I lived in a suburban street with a brick home, and who would have thought, you know? And here it was, just coming up this valley so quickly, and it turned around and it was coming from the valley behind us as well. And then it was coming from a third side. So within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, it was coming at us.
At the time of the fires here, there was panic. It was absolute panic. And that's what I think about when I think about the fires. You know, for me, it's still a little bit hard to smell smoke. So to sit around a fire is usually a lovely thing to do in the winter, but it's just not 100% comfortable for me yet. Yeah.
I couldn't get back home, so for 10 days I was just worked shift after shift, and afterwards I felt a bit scared and a bit like I didn't want to do this anymore.
I loved nursing, and yet I felt like resigning because I didn't realise that there was a consequence to everything. The consequence of registered nursing is you give to everybody, but nobody teaches you can't give to everybody if you don't know how to give back to yourself.
Don't think anyone realises what receiving kindness actually does. It's healing in itself. And so much kindness was given and outpoured over those periods of weeks and months.
Literally every single action of ours can be transformational. A conversation can be transformational. A kind look can be transformational. Being there for each other and providing the sacredness in the silence can be transformational. So the element of fire is about transformation.
Okay. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. You want to sit down?
I'll let you speak.
I'm Emma Frank. The actual bushfire started in my backyard. What happened was the ground changed, so it went from like a light colour in the ground to this darkness, and then just out of that darkness, you get a flame. The first time I really felt in danger, I was driving back from work. It was probably about 10 o'clock at night. We have no mobile coverage on the way in certain points. Suddenly I went round the corner and there was fire both sides of the road. And I thought, hell, what do I do? I'm going to go into no mobile coverage. So then I rang work and I said, guys, if I don't get home and you don't get a call from me, know that there's something happened because I'm just not sure if I'm going to get home.
My name is Michelle Devlin and I lived in Conjola Park. On New Year's Eve 2019, I was planning to go water skiing for the day. And I'm like, yeah, looking at the sky, we really didn't have any reason to think that was a problem. And so packed my bag to go water skiing and left my 2 Labradors at home.
My name's Stuart Emsley and I'm the Operations Manager and Director of Nursing at Milton Ulladulla Hospital. So on New Year's Eve 2019, we were like everyone else, preparing to have a party with family and friends. It was a normal preparation day, except that I noticed a seam of white smoke and it was coming from that direction. Nursing teaches us to recognise things that are different, and in this case it was different. That white smoke was moving directly toward us. Very quickly after that, it was clear that we had a lot of ember, active embers. So they go from the black ash to a red ember, and that's obviously the highest risk. My son and I had perched ourselves on the roof. We grabbed every tea towel we had in the house. We packed the down pipes with every tea towel we had, and then filled it with water. And my wife and daughter and her boyfriend actually stayed around the property and then started to manage the embers that came. We had a fairly clear view from up top that it was actually getting worse. It engulfed a complete wall of a mountain and was 40 metres above that mountain with flame, which is remarkably frightening at the time, because you see that it's completely untamed and it's coming to you. We saw the fire jump the lake, and we were questioning at that point the right move, as in, do we stay or do we leave?
So around about an hour later, I got picked up to go water skiing. We got down to the end of the road and I just felt uneasy. So I got out and I came back, and within 15 minutes, the flames started to come up the valley behind us. So I got my 2 dogs in the car and I just drove. And by that stage, we were driving back into the third front that was coming in the opposite direction. And I can remember thinking, Michelle, you know this way. You've been down this road 100 times. You've just got to instinctively drive along this road. I put my hand on the windscreen at one stage, and the heat that was coming through the windscreen was so hot, it would have burnt my hand. And I landed at Lake Conjola. And probably it wasn't until later that afternoon that we heard that the whole street had gone. Everything was burnt. So that was us, yeah.
Everything's gone. Hard.
We, like everyone else, were new to firefighting. But we just got in and did whatever we could. We ran hoses from other houses across the road. People had buckets. If there was a water source, we found it and we used it. I'm confident that if we didn't have 2 things happen, if we didn't have the wind change and we didn't have the community step in the way they did and fight the fires that were nearby, Conjola itself would have been decimated in the same way that Conjola Park was. We were just lucky. There was no management plan for it. It was just pure luck, and it's because of those people that I think we're still fortunate enough to be standing here today, having a conversation in this backyard with my house still standing.
Well, right now we are standing on my block of land where my house was. So I came back the next day. I came back on New Year's Day. And I came back late in the afternoon, so it took me a little bit of courage to sort of come back. And wow, like, it was obviously still smouldering, but it was just gone. I don't even know what to say. It was heartbreaking. I feel like I know it's really cliche, but I just feel like my whole world was sort of here. I came out of a marriage, I'm divorced, and I left Sydney to move down here, and I only took with me the really most precious things that I had. The things that I loved were the things that I brought with me. And so every single piece that I had in that house was special to me. I don't want to say that I was materialistic, but I think that you connect, your soul connects into a lot of the things that you have and you have around you. And I think that, yeah, I feel like I've lost part of me.
I'm Dr. Joelle Gergis, and I'm a climate scientist and a writer based at the Australian National University in Canberra. My work is really looking to try and help people understand what climate variability and change looks like in Australia and to get a better handle on what we might be expecting in the future. Australia's climate and the world's climate is changing because of the burning of fossil fuels. And so the summer that we just had is a preview of things to come. Because if we think about what we're moving into, an event like the 2019-2020 fires would be considered normal, like an average bushfire season by 2040, and actually a cool season by 2060. Because right now Australia's on track to warm on average by 4.5 degrees by the end of this century, but even up to 6 or 7 degrees. It's a horrifying prospect to actually consider. I think it's critically important that we start to think about those deeper aspects of the psychological impacts that these extremes are having on everyday Australians. And I think it's a very natural human response to feel a sense of grief and alarm and anxiety and even panic, because we know that it is really traumatic to see the places that we love be harmed or even destroyed.
My name's Shannon Barley. My Indigenous background is I'm from the Wiradjuri Nation. I work for New South Wales Fire Plus Rescue. I also work as a HASA, Health and Security Assistant at Milton Ulladulla Hospital. Being in fire and rescue, you know, we're there to, you know, preserve life, protect property, and we were unable to do that. So, yeah, there just wasn't enough of us, and we couldn't deal with it all. Not being able to succeed in a task, I take it personally. I really do. I'm hard on myself. We're there to do a job. I fail. I don't feel well. I don't feel well at all.
Over the next months, there was a huge grief. I returned to work about a week later, thinking it would be a really good thing. If I keep busy and I come back to work, and it will take my mind off things, and that will make it really easier. But I feel like I was moving in slow motion. I remember thinking, I can't remember anything, and people would talk to me and I can't remember what they're saying. It's a feeling that you feel a little bit powerless because you can't control anything and you don't know what you're going to expect. And look, it was nothing like I'd ever experienced. There was a guy that came in and he'd burned all his hands, and he became obsessed with trying to fix the lights on his cars, that the plastic had melted all around. And he said it was funny, I lost my house, I lost everything, but I was driving around to Nowra and Bateman's Bay just to get this thing fixed, so he felt like he had some control. I think that's what's scary, trying to get back to normal, but it's not as easy as you think.
My name is Melanie Lavington. I'm a registered nurse. I was actually one of the in charge of hospital at the time of our bushfires. I came in with a plan. My plan was to keep everybody as calm as possible. But internally, I was frightened myself, really frightened. Frightened because of the unknown. And you've got to understand too, I'm just a 4-year out nurse. I'm fairly new, so a lot of responsibility. You know the old terminology, fake it till you make it? Well, that was me. I put on the confident exterior, but internally I was really, really, really shaken by what I was hearing. And I knew I was exhausted, and I knew I couldn't be present for my family. So I'm a mother of 10 children. I have 9 daughters and 1 boy. And so that took its toll, started to show, you know, you're short with your family because they love you, you can get away with it, you talk to them badly, you're cruel, your harsh tone. That was me. That was what I was doing. The cracks were showing, and I knew it, but I couldn't stop it because I was so exhausted, so stressed, and I hadn't learned how to cope with that. But the loved ones were copying it, and they were copying it every day. So I was really considering resigning. I think the worst moment during the fires was I was given the responsibility to look after a palliative patient. I had a phone call from the family because they were unable to come in because the roads were blocked. They knew their loved one was about to, enter the stage of dying, the end of life carers. So I'm trying to have empathy on the phone because I could hear them crying. But then I had to reassure them and promise them that I'm going to be the nurse to sit with their loved one, to talk to their loved one, touch their face on their behalf. So I went into the room and I asked them all the quirkiest things. Tell me some things about him as quick as possible. So I could whisper those into his ear and make my presence known. So that's what I had to do. And I just did it. I'm going to get emotional because I knew I was trying to advocate for that patient, and I was hoping that I could support this palliative patient and give them the empathy and the reassurance, the feeling of love of someone, because I'm a stranger, feeling drained, feeling frightened, but trying to grasp my emotions so I could be present for the palliative patient. And that responsibility, that was the thing that really hurt, and that was the thing that was the worst for me.
I returned to the hospital on the 6th of January, and I received a call, I think on the third day after coming back, to inform me that they were sending a lady called Padmini Pai down to support me. I'd had previous workings with Padmini, who I knew as a social worker. Social workers and nursing don't always see eye to eye. The thought that the chief executive was sending me Padmini Pai was very difficult. So I remember sitting in my office thinking to myself, seriously, what do you want me to do with a social worker? What possible role can this person play?
My name is Padmini Pai. I was born and brought up in India. I was raised in a community, not in a nuclear family setup. So community is very important to me. To me, community means all of us have a collective responsibility for everything that happens to us, both in the space of joy and sorrow. So community is being there totally present for one another. We all knew how the bushfires was affecting our colleagues in Milton Hospital. And at that moment, I really felt the calling of wanting to be there and do something. But when I arrived here, I gave Stuart a call and I said, I'm all ready and set here to help you. Just let me know when to come. Cold shoulder. And he was polite, but I could kind of sense it, that he knew I was a social worker. And I'm like, what am I going to do here if this man doesn't want me to even come to the hospital?
So when Padmini arrived, I gave her tasks. I gave her things that I truly just wanted to get off my desk.
To be really honest, Stuart almost thought that he had another admin person to help him out. And that could have been his own story and overwhelm, being part of this huge devastation, coming to the hospital, having to make a lot of decisions on the go, and then having to deal with me as well could have been one factor. So I said, okay, Stuart, I'm happy to do absolutely anything. Tell me, what do you want me to do? And then he started giving me tasks. Then I could just see that was the start of a trusting relationship. And it's then that I spoke to Stuart and said, can we have a group of staff having a chat with me, very informal chat with me? And he said, yeah, we can do that. And I thought about 4 or 5 staff would turn up, and we had 23 staff turn up to talk. And that's when it was a very humbling experience for me, that people were willing and engaging and trusting me because I'm an outsider. So we started talking to each other, asking staff, what do you actually want? And then these beautiful trusting stories were coming of overwhelm, of really wanting to take care of each other, but my story is too big. Simple examples like, I'm even scared to ask how are you in the morning because I can't take it if somebody says how they are, because my story is even bigger than that. So what we did was we just started taking notes on what people wanted, and I used to take it back home, and then one day when I had rich information, I think I had about 84 suggestions from memory, and then quickly themed it into 5 categories, and that was the birth of the SEED program. So the first thing that we did was to set up a quiet space and a quiet room. So this beautiful room that I'm sitting in was our first low-hanging fruit, if I may say, in the SEED initiative.
It was a quiet room, a space, so staff could take a minute to as much time as they needed out of their working day, reconnect with themselves and disconnect with the working environment.
The openness that Stuart had to say, okay, let me give it a go. If it's going to benefit someone more than me, this may not be me, but let me give it a go. And then sneakily, I used to see Stuart sitting in the quiet room himself when he wanted thinking space. I kind of requested staff, once you've used the quiet room, can you just write a single word on how you felt coming to the quiet room? And every morning, it was like my secret journey to see how many people used the quiet room. So on day 1, day 2, day 3, I had about 2 or 3 sticky notes behind me. And like you could see now, the tree is almost overflowing with comments. So that was the birth of the tree in the quiet room, which has become such a big art feature. The second thing was, staff really sincerely wanted to take care of each other, but the story was too big. So we put everyone's name in a hat and we paired the staff, and that's how the coffee buddy system started.
To do that, I developed a partnership with 3 coffee shops in the local town who co-sponsored the coffees, and that gave us an opportunity to give 2 staff time off site during work time to go and get a coffee on us.
So each one take care of one single person. And if you see somebody else overwhelmed, just go to their buddy and let them know. The next thing we did was Wellness Wednesdays. So Wellness Wednesdays was a 1-hour program every Wednesday.
So I ran the first 3 months of Wellness Wednesday. It's a timeout, it's safe. And it's a place where you take off your professional hat. So I'm not Michelle the pharmacist. You're not Sarah the nurse. You know, we come and you can just be you, right? And then the environment is created that there's an opportunity to share. And sometimes those small sessions have brought out depths of concern or pain or sadness individually that we would never have heard of had not it been the opportunity given in that space. So Wellness Wednesdays are a really good value. And you know what? They were so popular that when COVID came, we had to put a waiting list on it for people to come along. It was just an awesome problem. Yeah, it was great.
The next thing we did was the Wellness Warriors, and I think that's one of our flagship programs.
It was a program for 18 staff, and they were staff that were picked to help the broader group manage the challenges of being in the working environment, caring for people while suffering carers fatigue because they still had their own stories outside of the workplace. And the principle was very much about enabling staff to companion, to listen and be supportive, not to rescue and provide solutions, but just to be a safe space for the rest of the team. We all recognised that 2019 didn't end the way that we thought it would. No one got to experience New Year's Eve. No one recognised New Year's Eve had either come or gone at that point. So we decided that we would have a See You 2019 on the 29th of February. It was a way of us ending what was a difficult year and moving into 2020. Little did we know that we were going to be preparing ourselves for a COVID 2020, but importantly, we were able to, as a team and as a group of people, come together and celebrate.
So these were all the 5 initiatives. I mean, I had to call it something, we had to name it something. And that's when one of the staff, I still remember vividly, she came up to me and said, even a computer can be called Apple. So why can't we call this program something fun? And I asked her, what do you want to call it? And she said, maybe a seed. And then we said, yeah, that's beautiful. Bushfire, seed, and so that's how our seed program was born.
My name is Ruth Everingham and I love talking about seed. Seed has been an absolute turning point for me in my career. So last year I was ready to resign. I was ready to leave health altogether. I didn't even think I could be a healthcare worker anymore. Things had got so bad for me. And then I kind of got roped into coming along to the Wellness Warrior training, and I got into the room and they started and I just went, oh my goodness. Hey! Finally, I'm in a space where I can truly be me, and that's okay to be me. I can be there for others, and it was just incredible. And in fact, I came out of those 2 days just thinking, I know why I didn't resign. I know I didn't, because now this is what I've got to do. This is what I've got to do for my career now. And so it's been incredible, the impact that seed has had on our hospital here. Everyone comes to work wanting to do a good job, but it's a tough job we do as healthcare workers. It's busy, and so sometimes the relationships between staff can get a bit fraught. It's a busy environment, and I think what seed has done is it's enabled people to get closer as human to human. And once you start becoming friends with your colleagues, when you start knowing a little bit more about them on a personal level, then you become much more invested in their well-being as well, and stronger together. And I can really notice that here in our hospital. You're not just another nurse on the hospital, or you're not just another allied health professional, you're part of my team now. So I want to look after you as much as I want to look after myself, and we'll do this together now.
What we've gone through and what we've dealt with, it's brought us closer together. The people at the hospital, I feel like they can be my family. Yes. Being an Indigenous person, you have a big family. It's extended. Working at the hospital, they are my extended family. Simple as that.
Definitely the trust that Stuart and me built working developed into a deep friendship.
Yeah, we're good mates. We've been through a lot together. We've challenged each other consistently throughout the process. She's clearly a social worker, but she's much, much more than that. She understands people in a deep and complex way.
I think Stuart now is part of my family as well. I almost consider him to be my Aussie brother. So I was requested to go to Milton for 2 weeks. And while seeds started growing in Milton, I ended up staying here for 5 months. I still remember driving here on the 13th of January, and really to drive through those roads was a total hour and a half of just two colors, brown and black. There is absolutely no green around, and it's beautiful that I've been coming to Milton so often now. As you're driving, you're wondering, what is this green at the bark of the tree? Because we're so used to green and leaves everywhere on top of the tree. So every time I've pulled over to either take a phone call or to take a break, I've gone closer to some of these trees and see this furry green coming out of the saps. As the sap is developing, the tree is bursting with hope and green. When I was brought up in India, a very elder person in my own community explained the story about an egg breaking. When an egg breaks from the outside, life stops. But if that same egg breaks from the inside, life happens.